The phone rang and I answered. There was an order for a soup man on the other side. The husband is a former Marine, served in Afghanistan, saw too much, did too much, and is now suffering from PTSD. His wife got her lover to stay at his home and has been rubbing it in her husband's face. The poor man gets a panic attack every time he confronts them. The man does not want to be in jail. He wants a lover boy soup. Can we not add the wife too? According to your story, I think she is the main culprit. He wants to deal with her himself. The husband is chicken, but I will still do it. A few days later, I met James. Nice guy. I never knew what PTSD was, but I now had a clear idea why he allowed his wife to cook him like that. He was afraid of his own rage. He did not want to kill anymore. He said he had his share in Afghanistan. I wished him luck, and a few hours later a gagged and tied lover boy named Donnie was stuffed in the hidden compartment of the 18-wheeler. I drove the truck to Rio Grande. From there, I put him in a bag and took him to the river where a small boat was waiting for me to take me to my destination. The sky was clear and it was a full moon. I could see the stars and it seemed like they were traveling with me. I closed my eyes and drifted back in time. My life, my parents, my friends, my little sister, my wife. Guamucho, Sinaloa, Mexico. I was born here in 1964. My parents, Rita Lopez Montoya and Salvador Meza. As a kid, I was not the smartest chip, but I was hardworking from the very start. I never went to high school, but I was skilled. My dad taught me how to work hard. I started working ever since I was a kid. I made bricks and later I learned how to use them to make buildings. I became a small bricklayer. In the 80s, Mexico was a wild place. There were heroes who fought the corrupt government and gave to the poor. We had Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, El Jefe de Jeffs, El Chapo, the Arellano Felix brothers. It was the golden era of the cartels. The government never cared as they had their mouths filled with either money or their bodies riddled with metal. I, on the other hand, was just a poor man with the desire to live, make some money, get married, have some kids and die. Oh, I guess I did not tell you my name. Santiago Mesa Lopes. They also know me as El Cago, meaning the shit. But what I am most famous as is El Pozolero. It means the stew maker. You may also ask what is with that weird name. You will know in a few minutes. By the way, I love pozole. Pork shoulders slowly cooked with vegetables. Slowly is the key word here. I married Araceli when I was 21 years old. She was a knockout, curly hair, brown eyes, a sharp nose, small lips, and a body to kill for. She was like a young Salma Hayek. Life was fine. It was a struggle, but it was good. I had everything that I wanted, and never thought I would end up where I am today. One fine morning my lovely wife asked, "When do we move to the big city?" I don't want to stay in the village. I always wanted to go to the city. All my friends are there. All your friends got divorced after moving to the city. Some are working as hookers. Some of them have returned and 2 of them have disappeared, I replied. What? I heard that the 2 are now working for the cartel as pleasure women. So after hearing this, you still want to go? I asked. Just because they made mistakes and wrecked their lives does not mean that I will have the same fate. After all, I want to go with you. Will you not go with me? She said, making a sad face. I'll think about it, but I don't promise anything, I said, and I left for the construction site. I was not sure why she suddenly started this discussion, but it was not something I liked. I have an entire family to take care of here, my parents and my little sister Nina. I cannot go away and leave it all behind. There are things that we want to do, but at times they never happen. Instead, what happens is the total opposite of what we want. It may be for the best, and at times it is for the worst. For me, it was both. In 1992, my parents fell ill, and I needed money, so I had to rush to the city to find a better job and make more money. Tijuana, Baja California, big city, lots of people. Very few jobs for a bricklayer. I used to find menial jobs during the day, and at night I tried to lay down asleep and not get robbed. I went back to Guamuchio after a month. As I walked in, I saw my sister, red eyes and sad. She informed me that both my parents died a week after I left, and they had no way to contact me. I was sad, but it was part of life. They were getting old and were going to die anyway, so I sucked it up and continued with my life. I went back to Tijuana a week later, and this time I had some success. I was getting work every day. I thought that my life was going to get better. I woke up every morning at 4:00 a.m. and went searching for work by 7:00 a.m. Most of the work that I got was bricklaying, loading goods in the trucks, and if I was lucky, there was a chance of working with a big-time mason. I was at a small store when I first met Teodoro. He would later be known as El Tío. Teodoro Garcia Cimental was a guy who helped load goods onto trucks. Two men can become friends based on absolutely nothing. That is what happened with us. I used to load goods for him, and he paid me well. One day he offered a beer. No one ever offered me anything before this. A few weeks later, he took me with him. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Time to upgrade, buddy. We are going to get rich." A few minutes later, we were outside a big house, and I saw two heavily armed guys standing outside. I got down from the truck and looked at the gate. Teodoro pointed towards the gate and said, "Take the step, buddy. We are going to be rich." I am not sure what happened at that very moment. I could hear only my heartbeat, and my heart was telling me to run away and never look back. I stood frozen for 3 seconds, and then everything was silent. I took the first step and walked in through the gates. That was one small step for me, but a giant one for mankind. Was it for the good? Was it for the bad? I will never judge. Teodoro took me to another man in the big house. I really don't recall his name, but he was a tall guy who was wearing a cowboy hat and had white cowboy boots. He also had a pistol tucked under his belt. Teodoro then walked with this big guy and asked me to wait. He then spoke to another man who was sitting on a chair by the pool. A few minutes later he came back to me and said, "From tomorrow, you will live here and take care of the horses and make sure that any mason work that needs attention is done in minutes." I nodded. The very next day, as I walked back to the big house, I was stopped at the gate and searched. I walked in and went to the big man I met the day before. He walked me to a small room at one end of the house and told me that I could stay there. That day, I went to the horses, gave them hay and water, and even made sure that they were washed and brushed. There was no work in the house that evening. When I was in my room, the big man came and sat down beside me. "What is your name?" "Santiago Mesa Lopes. I am from Guamuchio." "I am Ricardo. I am from La Tuma, Badiraguado. There are some rules that I must tell you about. You will never walk in the house. You will never take the horse out of the compound. You may see a lot of things that may make you unhappy or even question your presence here. Close your eyes and come back to your room and just lay down. Never talk to anyone outside the house. Do I make myself clear?" I nodded, and the man got up and started walking. "I have a question." I stopped the man. "Who do I work for? I mean, who is the owner here?" He looked back at me and said, "Eduardo Arellano Felix." I had heard that name before and immediately knew who that was. He is one of the nephews of the founder of the Guadalajara cartel, Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo. Eduardo has more brothers. Together, they are known as the Arellano Felix brothers. They founded the Tijuana cartel. I think I have bitten off more than I can chew. A few weeks went by, and there was nothing significant. I never saw anything that said I worked for the devil. After a month of working there, I wanted to go back to my village and meet my family. Ricardo allowed me to go back, and I also asked if I could stay with my wife somewhere nearby. Luckily, he allowed it and said that he would arrange a small house nearby. So I was on my way to bring my family to the big city. A week later, I brought my wife back to the new small house that was about half a mile from the big house. My wife was very happy, and so was my sister. They both were excited and wanted to see the city. I wanted to have kids now, but God did not want me to have kids. After trying for months, we realized that something was not right. We had a heated exchange one night. Araceli, I know how much having a baby means to you, and it's important to me too. But right now the financial strain is overwhelming. I wish I could just snap my fingers and make it happen, but reality is tough. I know we've been trying for a baby, but the checkup costs are just too much right now. Too much? That's your excuse every time. Lopes. Do you even realize how much this means to me? I've been waiting for us to start a family, and all I hear from you are excuses, she sneered. I'm not making excuses, Araceli. I'm telling you the reality of our situation. We have bills to pay, and I can't just magically make money appear out of thin air. Well, maybe if you worked harder or got a better job, we wouldn't be in this mess. I'm doing the best I can, Araceli. Right now, this is the only job I have. Fine, Lopes. Do whatever you want, but don't expect me to wait around forever while you drag your feet on something that's so important to me. I'm not dragging my feet. I'll figure out a way to save up for the checkups, but I need your support, not your constant nagging. We did not speak to each other that night. I started to save money, and it did put a lot of strain on our family. I wanted Nina to go to school, but that was not possible as of now. She was already 19 years old, and I really needed to get her trained on some skill sets so that she could have a better life. A few days later, something unusual happened. 2 men arrived at the big house. They were not Americans, but looked like them. They looked sharp, like they belonged in a fancy office, not here. They seemed chill, talking to the guards like it was no big deal. They knew where they were going, nodding at people like they belonged there. I waited, expecting something exciting, but they just talked to the boss, said some stuff I didn't understand. I kept at a distance. The next day, I was with the horses when I received an unexpected summons to the back of the house. There is a small room there, and I was asked to go in. As I entered, I found the 2 men engrossed in a peculiar experiment. They had prepared a solution that looked like clear water. They asked me to lower a beef leg in a metal drum. I picked up the beef leg and placed it in the drum. I saw Teodoro walk in. Then they asked me to pour the liquid in the drum and start to stir it for hours. I diligently stirred the concoction, intrigued by its purpose yet unaware of its true nature. It wasn't until 2 hours later that the mystery unraveled before my eyes. The beef leg, initially submerged in the solution, had dissolved completely, transforming the liquid into a thick soup. The stench was unbearable. The soup looked like excrement. A few minutes later, they asked me to drain the drum. When I drained it, I found tiny fragments of bones and some foul-smelling liquid. The 2 guys smiled at me and later asked me to come back tomorrow. For the next 2 weeks, they kept experimenting with different mixtures and ways to dissolve the beef leg. I came to know that they came from Israel. Finally, one day they settled on caustic soda and water. It seemed that it took time, but it was the most cost-effective and efficient method to dissolve meat. To my surprise, I was given $500 for my work with the 2 Israeli guys. Filled with excitement, I decided to leave work early. I couldn't wait to share the news with Araceli, my wife. For so long we had struggled with fertility issues, the constant disappointment weighing heavy on our hearts. As I stepped into our home, I was met with a sight that shattered my world. There in our own bedroom, Araceli was naked and another man on top of her, pounding with all his might. Moans coming out of Araceli's mouth left no room for doubt or misunderstanding. My heart plummeted to the pit of my stomach. A rush of emotions flooded my senses. Shock, disbelief, and a deep, agonizing pain tore through me as I stood frozen in the doorway, unable to tear my gaze away from the scene unfolding before me. How could this be happening? I thought, my mind struggling to comprehend the reality of the situation. It seemed like a nightmare coming true. Without thinking, I charged at him, my fists clenched tight. I managed to land a couple of punches, fueled by raw emotion and the need to defend my honor, but my opponent was no stranger to violence. He quickly retaliated, dodging my blows and countering with precise strikes that knocked me off balance. Despite my determination, I couldn't match his skill and strength. The fight was chaotic, a whirlwind of desperation and fury. I tried to keep my guard up, but each blow landed with devastating force, driving me to the ground. The pain was excruciating, but my anger burned hot, refusing to let me surrender. However, it soon became evident that I was outmatched. The man towered over me, his face twisted in contempt, as he delivered each blow with calculated precision. "You're just a fool," he spat between punches. "Thought you could play tough guy. You're nothing but a fly buzzing around, and we don't take kindly to pests." Each word was like a hammer blow, driving home the harsh reality of my helplessness against the cartel's might. As the beating intensified, his goon joined in, adding kicks and punches to the merciless assault. Through the haze of pain, I heard him sneer. "Your wife, she belongs to me now. You're lucky I don't finish you off right here. But don't worry, I'll be back for more fun with her." I tried to look at Araceli. She was smiling, as if she was proud of her new man. "You think you've suffered enough," he taunted, his voice dripping with malice. "You have no idea about your sister. She's already been opened up. Before I had your wife, I had my way with her. She did put up a fight, but then she crumbled like all others before her." He walked near me and whispered, "She was tight and moaned like crazy. I guess she climaxed multiple times. Once I go back, I'll screw her again. Once I am done, I'll put her in the line of duty for my men." I was furious and tried to grab him again, but someone hit me with something hard on the back of my head. I was out cold. I don't remember how long it took for me to wake up again. I saw Ricardo and Teodoro standing near me. Ricardo placed a hand on my shoulder. "Are you okay?" Okay might be an understatement. I've been better. It's been a nightmare. I confronted that guy from some cartel, and things escalated quickly. "What happened? Tell me clearly," Teo asked. "I found Araceli with another man, and when I tried to intervene, he and his goons beat me up pretty bad." Ricardo clenched his jaw and asked, "Did they say anything, give any indication of what they want?" "Yeah, they made it clear that I should stay out of their business, especially when it comes to Araceli. They said that she belongs to him, and he'd come back later to have fun with her. That's not all. The guy boasted about assaulting my sister. He said she's now working for him in some red light area." "What about your wife? She was concerned when we came to check on you. Although she did not inform the cops or call a doctor for you, I guess she was willingly involved with the guy," Teo asked. "Yes, she was moaning like a witch when I came in. She was enjoying him." "Take rest, you have a lot of work to do," Ricardo said, and they both walked out. For the next 2 days, I stayed at the house in my room and did not go back. My anger kept boiling, and I was concerned for my sister. On the 3rd day, Ricardo came in and said, "Can you walk?" I got up and nodded. "Follow me," he said, and walked out. We went to the experiment lab, and I saw Teo standing there. He smiled and said, "Rise and shine, boy. Time for you to work magic. The 2 guys taught you how to dissolve meat in your magic potion. Can it dissolve human flesh?" I was a bit confused and said, "With that heat and soda working on it, I guess yes." Suddenly, a voice came from the back. "Lopes, you have a choice to make. Either walk away as a human now, or embrace the evil and become the devil." Eduardo Arellano Felix walked in and stood beside me. I now had to make a decision. But then I knew that there was no decision to be made. I would never walk out of here alive, let alone as a human. You don't say no to the Felix brothers and stay alive. The only option I had was to become the devil. I became one, and I was out to make sure I was the devil himself. I have a condition, I spoke. Arellano held up his hand. Your sister is still missing. Your wife has left your house, and we expect that she is with her new lover, Alvaro Perez, the man who beat you up. He is a leader of a very small cartel. He is an insignificant human. I will hand him over to you. I was stunned as to how he knew what I wanted. I guess this was a reason he was who he is. I will find the pig and hand him over to you. Do as you please. What about your wife? He asked. The pig was not alone in his act. The swine must pay as well. Let's find your sister first. Let me know when you are ready. I will hand you an army to hunt that pig down. With his men at my disposal, I combed through every corner of Tijuana, driven by a desperate determination to find my missing sister. Days turned into nights, each moment filled with worry and anticipation. Finally, one of the team found her. They got information that a fresh meat was delivered to an old man. They raided the place and found 7 men in the room, taking turns on Nina. All of them were immediately shot and sent to hell. They informed us, and I rushed to the location. As soon as I reached the spot, I ran towards her. Her clothes were torn, bloodied. She had bruises on her face, and her eyes were almost swollen shut. My heart sank at the sight of her frail form, barely clinging to life. I had promised to take care of my little sister. I failed. I quickly held her in my arms. Nina, I whispered, my voice choked with emotion as I knelt beside her. Her eyes, once full of life, were now hollow and distant, a stark reflection of the horrors she had endured. Ellos me hicieron cosas malas. Me duele. They did bad things to me. It hurts, she whispered. I could not control my tears. As I was holding her close to my chest, I felt her body go limp. I knew what happened, but my heart could not accept it. I closed my eyes, held her tight. No, she cannot leave me. My little sister, mi pequeño ángel, my little angel. It was silent. I could hear my heartbeat. I don't remember how long I held on to her. I was brought out of my peace by Tio. Cops are coming. We need to go. I carried Nina's body and left the place. The next day, Nina was laid to rest. Her bruised face still reminded me of the horror and pain she suffered when her casket was lowered in the ground. Something inside me was dying as her casket was being covered with soil. Something inside me was being born. I went back to my room and sat down. A few minutes later, I was called by Tio. I went to meet him. He asked me to follow him. We went to the lab and found a man tied up. He took Nina to the old pig. We found him this morning and brought him here. I walked to him and sat near him. I am just a courier guy. Please let me go. It was your wife's plan to sell her and take the money. She is with Alvaro and Sanchez Taluada. They have 5 guys with them. Please let me go. I only know this much. You took my sister to hell. You were responsible for her death. A shot rang, and I saw a hole in his head. Arellano walked in with a smoking pistol. It's time to see if you can make a soup out of this pig, he said. I took the metal drum, added caustic soda and water, and the main ingredient, the pig carcass. I put the drum on the burner. It cooked for 15 hours. I occasionally stirred it. By the end of the 15th hour, all that was left was a few fragments of bones and a big drum filled with a soup that smelled like manure. Ricardo entered the lab and straight up called me. Hey, shitman, El Cago, hence one of my names. Tio and Arellano were happy with the results, and thus El Pozolero was born. 3 days later, I was called by Tio to a new location. It was a small building in a deserted location. Welcome to your chicken coop, Tio said. So this is my office, I asked. We went inside and Tio asked, what do you say? Lavish office, great location. Only problem will be the travel time." He laughed and said, "The traffic is low, so it won't impact your travel. Besides, you get a company-sponsored car." We both laughed and went back to the house. That evening one of Arellano's men came and said, "Time to hunt your pig, Lopes." "It's about time," I said to myself and followed him. If there is one place in Tijuana that you don't want to get stuck in, it is Sanchez Taboada. It's a maze of houses, and you never know from which window that fatal bullet flies in and takes away your life. But if you are traveling with the cartel in Tijuana, no one will dare point a finger at you, let alone a metal barrel. 5 minutes later, we were looking at a small apartment on the first floor. 3 men got down from our entourage and took positions at nearby buildings. 7 others took positions near all exits of the building. There was no way they could escape. 3 more men walked into the building with me. We went to the first floor. One of the men knocked on the door. A very intoxicated Alvaro opened the door. I raised my pistol and shot him in both his legs. I walked in and saw my loving wife, naked and hiding behind the bed. "Don't worry, my love. I will never lay a hand on you. So come out. Let me talk to you." "Please no, let me go." Alvaro forced me to do this. I turned to Alvaro and dragged him by his hair and laid him right near her. "Hey, Alvaro. My wife says you forced her to betray me. You forced her to sell my sister." "Screw you." He spat at me. I took a chair and sat near him. I put my index finger in the bullet hole that I made in his leg. "I can have another right between your legs and I won't put a finger in it. I have a cannon for that. So now tell me, why did you sell my sister?" "Your wife is a very horny woman. I was eyeing her for a few days. I couldn't resist. She was sending me signals, and one day I walked into your house. When I walked in, I found her naked on your bed. She jumped on me like a hungry animal. I ravaged her, and it became an everyday thing. One day your sister Nina caught us. I wanted to let that go since it did not matter to me. You were no threat to me. But your wife was adamant. She wanted Nina gone. That evening Araceli called me and told me that she had drugged Nina. I knew that you were still working with Felix, so I came to your home. Araceli had taken off all of Nina's clothes, and she wanted me to take her. For me it was just pleasure. I later took her to our hideout, and all my boys enjoyed her. Later I sold her to a wealthy man, and I had no idea that he would kill her. Your wife got paid. I gave her $1,000. I smacked my pistol on his head, knocking him out. I looked at Araceli. No, he is lying. I was forced into this. I raised my pistol and shot her in her ankle. That ankle will never be the same, and she will never walk properly again provided I let her live that long. Now, my beloved wife, tell me, what did Nina ever do to you that she deserved being dragged through hell?" I raised my pistol again. "No, please, wait, I'll tell everything." I lowered the gun. "You were planning to pay for her education. We don't have money for our tests, and you were saving for her. You gave her all your attention, and I was relegated to be a third person in the house. I hated her, so I had her out." She began crying. At this moment, I was stunned and angry. "Why did you cheat on me?" Alvaro was good-looking, had a great body. And you, on the other hand, are short and stupid. I wanted to see how it felt to be with a real man, not a sucker like you. I started to hate you. I had enough. I motioned to my guys, and both of them were blindfolded and dragged down to the truck and taken to the chicken coop. Araceli was still tied naked and blindfolded. Alvaro was bleeding and moaning in pain. I removed Araceli's blindfold. She saw the place and started crying. "Don't worry, dear, I will never harm you. I have always loved you. But you see, the boys here have been looking at you ever since they brought you here. I have to pay them as well. Since I know that you love to screw and want to be with real men, I will give you what you always wanted. I will make sure to make you the cartel joyride that everyone enjoys." I walked out and told the guys, "She is all yours. Take your turn and call your friends as well. Run the longest train in history." I returned 3 days later, and all the guys were smiling. As I entered the room, I saw Araceli lying in a corner, still naked. Someone had bandaged her ankle. There is still some kindness left in the world. For a moment, I felt bad for her, but Nina's dying statement haunted me. Araceli deserved all of this, and besides, she wanted to be with a real man. How will she know which one is the real one unless she tries all of them? I walked out of the room and went straight to the guys. "It's time to end this. Bring them both in the kitchen and get me a chainsaw." 10 minutes later, a chainsaw motor was at its full glory. After a lot of screams, splatters, and loads of blood, I had 2 drums to fill with caustic soda and water. After 16 hours of cooking, I drained the soup for fragments and buried them in the backyard of the chicken coop. In the evening, I went back to the house and just collapsed on the bed. How many husbands walk to the dark side like me? How many can flip the bird to the law and do what they really want to do? How many have the guts to do what I did for them? I would be the sword. I would be the executioner. The boat reached the destination. I dragged Donnie to my chicken coop. My trusted chainsaw was waiting for me. The drums were eager to cook a new soup for all the husbands who can't walk the walk. I am your devil. I am El Cago. I am El Pozzolero. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.